Okay, we're now going to talk about OS path join. I had it noted at the top here. We're going to look at a particular problem that we might run into if we are working in a directory other than the current directory. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and follow my prior pattern and put the current directory in this path so that I can use it as a variable, and that'll work fine. And now I can use that variable name in my file listing. All works, great. Now let's say that I wanted to open up each of the files that's here. I might be interested in making sure that I'm not looking at a directory. So I might say if well, what I'd really like to do is just open the file and see what happens, but I have a feeling I'm going to run into a problem. So I could maybe use a I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but I'm looping through the directory. We're getting each entry, and I'll explain why I'm calling that entry. The reason I'm calling it entry and I'm not calling it file is that lister will list out all files and directories within a directory. Of course, you know that your file system contains nested folders or nested directories that go down sort of like leaves of or branches of a tree into many levels of depth, a folder within a folder within a folder, and each one of those folders may contain other folders or other files. And of course, when I say folder, I mean the same thing as directory. Here with OS path isdir, I'm checking to see if that entry is a directory. And if it isn't a directory, I'm going to go ahead and try to open it. Let's see what happens. Okay, I get a syntax error. And normally when you get a syntax error and it doesn't show you anything, or it shows you something where you're not really sure, usually means there's some open parentheses that's missing. Okay. This is kind of interesting because at this point, I'm attempting to open up a file that Python is saying doesn't exist. Now, why don't I go ahead and just print that file name just to make sure that it is there and what it is. And although it's called .anaconda, that shouldn't throw you. .anaconda happens to be a utility file or directory in this home directory. What's strange about this, and this is the part that I want you to try to parse, is that although lister just gave me the name of a file that it found, because it wouldn't give me the name of this file unless it found it, Python is telling me no such file or directory when I try to open it. So the question is why? Why would Python show me the name of a file that one moment later it is unable to open because it can't find it? I will tell you, because entry is a string that contains the name of a file. Now, that might tell you, yeah, there's the file. We found it. There it is. Why can't we open it? I'm telling you, this is just the name of a file. You see what name gets printed when I print entry? Just the name of this file. Again, don't worry about the dot being in front of it. That's kind of distracting. It doesn't really make a difference. It's just a way to notate the name of a file. Why can Python show me the name from listing the directory and not being able to open it? Well, look again at this file name. Do you see any path information connected to this file name? And where are we currently? Well, I'll tell you, we're not in users David. We're in IPyContent 8. That's a different directory. We're listing out the contents of a different directory. Python is showing us the name of the file, but it's not showing us any path information. And when we try to open the file, Python's not going to go looking in other directories for that file. It's only going to look in the current directory for that file if we just want to open up that name. We can open up any files that are currently in our directory. We can't open up files that are in other directories unless we tell Python the path information. So where's the path information? Well, search dir. In fact, the .anaconda file is in users david.anaconda. It's in users David. So what we need to do is prepend the search dir to our entry. Let's do that right here. We could go ahead and just concatenate the two strings. Now, actually, that didn't work quite right. We're going to need to put in, looks like we're going to need to put in a / to make it look right. There's users data anaconda, and actually, if we use that, that's going to allow us to open up the file because that's the complete path to the file. But we're not going to use straight concatenation for this purpose. Instead, we're going to use os path join. In fact, we should probably do this elsewhere. We should do this. I'm going to just create a file path here. Great. Now I've created a variable, which is another string variable. And keep in mind, we're only working with strings here. Strings are just very useful for storing and retrieving various kinds of information, text information. When we say os path join search dir and entry, we're saying take this string, which is the root path, which is the path to the file, and entry, which is a string with the file name in it, and use and concatenate those two. That's what join is doing. Now, you could use straight string concatenation, or you could use the format method to get this to happen, but it's strongly recommended that you always use os path join in order to join these two pieces together. Why? Because it will handle the slashes for you. That's the reason. You may remember that we took the search dir and the file name and we had to add another / in there. But, you know, it's possible that search dir has a trailing / in it, and we might have to be aware of that in order to get the right number of slashes in there. Maybe it doesn't need a /. Maybe we could just do straight concatenation. In addition to that, don't forget, Windows uses backslashes. Unix uses /. os path join will use the / that's correct for your system. So it's platform agnostic. It doesn't really care what platform you're in, but it does know which platform you're in. And so it's going to use that platform to decide which / to use. And here I can print file path here, and we can see the results. Now we're getting a problem here, I think, because we're opening a file that's not actually coded for regular text file opening, and that just happens to be my problem. I'm going to see if I can fix that. There we go. All right, now we get a permission denied. That's kind of interesting. I didn't expect that. Let's look at our output, and let me do an additional print statement here so we can see some clear output. As you can see, we are getting a very long listing of my home directory. And what have I got here? This file has 9,600 lines. This file has 4 lines. I mean, if you look at my code here, you can see that I'm reading the file into a list and getting the len of the list. So I'm very easily and quickly getting the number of lines in each file. You can also see, because I printed file path, you can see the full path to the file as returned by os path join. So let's review here. The basic concept on any file is that you are going to, if you're listing out a directory, you're going to want to join the name of the file to the path. So joining the name of the file to the directory that you're searching or that you're listing. So this is the standard way we do this. You say OS lister, you give it a directory name. You say for entry because the listing in the lister may contain files or directories. And then you join the search dir to the file name and you get back a file path. That'll be an absolute path to the file. And you can then open the file from there. I'm using RB. This is not something I've talked about before. I had to use RB because some of the files were in binary form. We haven't really touched on that, so we'll just leave it the way it is normally, and we won't run into problems here.